Well, I'm here with Julian Lowe. We have been talking for about 20 minutes, and we're just joking right now that we maybe wasted all our good stuff
Yeah.
as we talk. But Julian and his wife Christina pastor Oasis Church in Los Angeles, and it's actually where Jennifer and I and our family were able to serve for a couple years earlier. Man, that's crazy. That's like 7 years ago, almost
Insane.
7 years ago that we first came down to Oasis, and man, just the opportunity to talk with you anytime is a joy. Um, I know you've expressed in times like this that balance of it's still beautiful connecting with people, but it's in sad circumstances, as we talk about
Hmm.
the murder of George Floyd. We talk about now the racial tension that's at the forefront of everyone's mind. I always want to be cautious and not say, "Oh, look, racial tension just started." No, this has
Right.
always been an issue, but it's sure at the forefront of our mind. And so, in those circumstances today, it's
Mm.
great to talk with you and hear your heart. Uh, love the the passion and the tone of voice with which you're pastoring. Not only your congregation but your city and other churches as you're mentoring and coming alongside and helping coach. And so, I just want to honestly kind of open the floor for you to share your heart, some of the things you're learning. I may have a few questions, but I would far rather be in a listening posture and hear how you're doing, man. Hear what's on your heart.
Yes. First of all, thanks. And thank you for just obviously when the time you and Jennifer did serve here, just your investment. So many people I think that I've had the honor of coming in contact with have prepared me for the hour that we are in, and you are one of those people for sure. So,
Well,
it's been an interesting time. I've never learned so much in 2 weeks than the biggest thing I discovered was this. You pastor a church of a few thousand, and it's one of the most influential churches in LA, and you are the lead pastor of that church.
yeah,
So then my title in that world that was given to me was Pastor Julian.
right,
And what I hear a lot of times, sometimes when I go to church, is more Pastor Julian than just Julian. My close friends call me Julian.
right.
Everybody else calls me Pastor Julian. So it's Pastor Julian, Pastor Julian, Pastor Julian, Pastor Julian. Great message, Pastor Julian. Oh man, what a strong leadership thought, Pastor Julian. And then in a news media frenzy,
Yeah.
I became in that moment just a Black man in America. And so then that title
Wow.
of Pastor Julian, I was immediately demoted and
Wow.
realized that I had been living in this title
Wow.
that is honored in this world, but means nothing in this
Wow.
world. And some of what kicked in for me was a bit of guilt that I had created this world for myself where there's nobody who comes and sits under my voice every Sunday that would not have any dislike towards me at all for the color of my
Right.
skin.
Right.
Um, but in that sense, it felt a little bit like I haven't done a thing in these issues. And so it made me realize that I have more than one hat. I can't just be Pastor Julian anymore. I have to be
Right.
Pastor Julian. I have to be, obviously, I'm a father and a husband,
Hmm.
but I also have to be a Black man in America. And what does that mean? And how
Right.
do I pastor people? And how do I, um, help those people? So that was one thing I learned. The other thing I learned is one of the greatest challenges and difficulties in the church would be that I believe at our core, we want to reach people for Jesus and
Yeah.
we want to preach the gospel. But in our passions for preaching the message of eternity, we have missed the message of the hour, and that's injustice. And
Wow.
Jesus, this is why Bible college is so helpful, because he's talking in cultural context in the hour,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so you don't know the hour, you don't know the time. So if you don't know the
Right.
time, you can actually misinterpret the Bible if you don't know the cultural context and the time
Absolutely.
speaking in.
Hmm.
So now, even as Christians, we are misinterpreting revelation of God's word because we don't know the hour. We don't know that this
Wow.
might be one of the greatest, times of injustice. And a lot of that is just due to history books and the way things were written. The other thing that I learned too, and this is something that is a bit eye-opening, is how our nation, America, categorizes violence
Right.
compared to color. So when a black man loots, and I am against all looting and violence, but when a black man does that in America, it's a riot.
Right.
But our history has shown that our country was founded on a riot. Some white settlers, frustrated with their oppression from the King of England, they tried their best to whisper and get their voice heard.
Yeah.
And so after years of that not happening, they stormed the Boston Harbor, attacked it, tossed tea into the ocean. Historians say that in today's dollar, they caused $1.7 million in damage.
Right.
The king called it a riot. This is an act of war. Revolutionary War begins. We won our freedom.
Yeah.
But history books does not say they started a riot. It was a party.
Right.
So as a black man, I go,
Dude,
oh,
yeah.
this is a Boston Tea Party, man. Freedom fighters.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so now my job as a pastor is to not condone violence, but I have a question. Our nation was founded on the same act and we called it a party. So I wrestle with different things, and I'm learning different things about our history books. And here's the thing, in our country, we always say things like, how did we get here? Well, we started here.
Right.
The Declaration of Independence was signed by those 13 colonies, all their leaders. They're probably high-fiving, and they put John Adams and all these guys. They write on the Declaration, they sign all their signatures, and the reality is their pen was probably passed to them by a slave. And so here we are, and we ignore all of this stuff. And we go, there's racial tension.
Right.
And America, think about a rope with tension. And millions of white Americans are traversing across the rope of racial tension, just getting to what's going to make them money, just getting to what, and then it snapped. This is not tension anymore.
Right.
This is
brokenness.
This is the brokenness. This is, I believe, Genesis chapter 4, where the spilt blood of African American men is crying out from the ground to God. And that's what I think it is, the spilt blood of African American men in this country. I posted something the other day that the American soil is soaked with the blood of African Americans. And I think the blood is crying out to God. And I believe that God is doing, this is revival. This is what we've been praying for. And I'm just trying to do my part and do it with grace, do it with love.
When you say this is revival, can you shine a light a little bit on where you're seeing that kind of hope, or where you're looking and saying, hey, God's in this? When you say because depending on perspective, people, I think, so quickly with a word like this, they go, I look at one angle of it and he said this is revival. Oh, I look at this angle, what people posting black squares, revival. Is that revival?
Yeah.
Like what are the things you're seeing and going, I see hope in this?
Yeah, I think that all change begins with division. If it's God's change, it leads to unity.
Right.
But it starts with division.
Right.
And I think that if you look at when the Holy Spirit fell in the Acts chapter 2, some people say, oh, these guys are drunk.
Right.
Not like everybody there knew it was God.
Right.
And so there are going to be some people that don't, I think there's a difference between discovery and discernment. So what I'm saying is, when I watch the news, I'm discovering the hatred towards me because of the color of my skin. But when I get on my face, I'm discerning what God is doing.
Right.
And if we allow our discovery to outweigh our discernment, we will not know what God is doing. Because I think people spend more time on news articles than on their face. And I've been on both. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm discovering that I'm hated for the way I look, but I'm discerning that God is for me and he's doing something and he's going to use me. And in that discernment, I've been given a platform to bring change for what I'm discovering, if that makes sense.
Wow.
And I think they're so important. And I think as soon as you get a Christian into discovery mode full time, they can't discern anything.
Wow.
And this is spiritual warfare, and we need to know the
Dude, I
times.
think that's huge what you're saying right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's spiritual warfare. It's deeper than just
Yeah.
just what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Way deeper.
So let me ask you this. I hope this is a fair question. The thing I've heard many, many times over the last number of weeks, and, if I'm honest, take a step back, there's been seasons. There's been, moments where tension rises to the surface and subsides, depending on what region of the world you're living in, what times you're in. But I hear this statement a lot: educate yourself. Ask yourself the hard questions. What would you say for people would be some of the, I know you're not going to give answers, but what are some of the hard questions that people should be asking themselves?
I'll describe it this way. The hard question
Mm-hmm.
is not, am I a racist?
Mm-hmm.
It's, am I an environmentalist? Am I a person that produces environments where racism can thrive? Here's what I mean. You can do that on accident.
Yeah.
You take a shower,
Yeah.
you leave a wet towel on the ground, there's going to be mold.
Right.
Period. And then you can have a mold team come in, but as long as you're unaware that it's the towel on the ground that's causing the mold.
Right.
I give this thing, there's a guy I went to school with, and he opened up, he's not a Christian, he has a marijuana dispensary.
Yep.
And if you put him in a room with a bunch of people who are addicted to marijuana,
right,
and then your goal is to eradicate marijuana addiction in the city of Los Angeles. And so you say, hey, I have a question. I want everybody in this room, trust me, we're for you, we're going to help you.
Yeah.
I want you to raise your hand if you're addicted to marijuana. And everybody raises their hand except for him. Because he actually doesn't smoke marijuana, by the way.
Right, right.
So then you lead everybody out of the room and you put them in rehab, and you don't touch the person who is cultivating and creating the atmosphere for the marijuana they're addicted to. And so I think we can be environmentalists. Yeah. We can be business owners. Here's an environmentalist who's a business owner. They get a Black applicant, and they don't need to treat them as special, but maybe they should consider that they have a unique experience.
Right.
Maybe they should think about, hey, if this person has an MBA, right, and they're Black, and their name is Lakeisha, they might have been turned down from 5 different jobs because of their name. Right. I had a boss back in the day who wasn't a racist, but cultivated environments where racism exists. He would put, applying for executive assistant job, your name better not be Dontrell or Lakeisha. Wow. And I remember he skipped over one who had an MBA. I can't have an executive assistant named Lakeisha. Wow. And just skipped over application. And a girl named Erica got the job. So I'm saying I wouldn't have said he was a racist. Right. Cultivated environments where racism. Right. So I would say that's a tough conversation. Practically, what does that look like? When I have a birthday party and my kid has people over, are there people that don't look like them? Right. So you have a diverse church, and I love the fact that because you're a diverse human. Yeah. That's why you have a diverse church. Yeah. And one of the most offensive things that I've heard in our church is, I want a church that looks like heaven. Dude. Your dinner table doesn't look like heaven. Yes. Yes. Your birthday parties don't look like heaven. So you want a church that looks like heaven so you can walk around and brag about it at a conference? Hey, why don't you try having your friendship friends look like heaven? Let's just start there. Yeah. Because if you're not a racist, but you are an environmentalist. And that is the tough question. Right. Am I an environmentalist? Do I do things? Yeah. And I think that's the question. I think it's a little bit unfair. Educate yourself is very nebulous. Like, educate yourself. Like, well, where do I start? Yeah.
I love that, because I think, what you highlight, that's the question. Then people go, ask yourself the hard question. And then you go, okay, am I a racist? No. Am I done now? Like, is my question, is that all that is being asked of me? Or you're like, look again, ask again, ask again. You're like, I'm asking for the 10th time. I'm digging so deep. I'm trying to look at it in that angle. Now, some people along the journey of saying, am I an environmentalist, might go, I'm actually maybe racist. Like it's maybe more deeply entrenched than I thought. And I feel like the difference might be when you become aware, are you willing to make change? Because
Yes.
if you become aware that you're creating environments and you go, I'm still more comfortable with the environments I've created, would you say that's probably the line where like, there's probably some racism there? It's not just ignorance anymore. Like the moment you become aware of something, you can't claim ignorance anymore.
Yeah, I would say this, and this would be a hard thing for someone to listen to.
Yeah.
If you have never been deeply loved and been in a deep relationship with an African American, you would almost always have some prejudices or racism in your life somewhere.
Wow.
And the reason why I'm able to respond with a deep anger that is managed by the Holy Spirit is because I've been deeply loved by white people. Right. And your average African American has not. Right. I was in my late 20s before a white person deeply loved me. Think about that.
Wow.
In my late 20s.
Yeah.
And it was in the church.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been able to point to a white person that I was like, yeah, that's what love looks like. I would have been able to point to them like, I know they don't hate me, but I wouldn't have been able to. I'm talking about, like, I feel like I could call you.
They know you.
Out of my life. You're on a plane. I got you. I don't know if I had that.
Yeah.
You know. And so I think if you don't have those, then the odds are it's somewhere there. There's a lot of people don't know Malcolm X is not popular in the civil rights movement. And one of the things that made him unpopular was, regardless of what he did for the Black community, he called the white man the devil. That was his theology. The white man is the devil. He said it publicly, and white people lost their mind. And Black people were like, we can't touch this guy. You know, but what people don't know about Malcolm X was that when he was a little boy, some Ku Klux Klan members, his dad was an activist, banged down his door, drug his dad out of the house, beat him senseless, laid his dad on train tracks, and his mother and Malcolm Little at the time, his name wasn't Malcolm X, discovered his dad on train tracks, cut in half by the train that had ran him over. And that was his first encounter with a white man, and only encounter with a white man. So he grew up his whole life hating the white man. And so then he begins to preach, and the white man is the devil, the white man's the devil, and he's never had an interaction with any other white man than one who laid his dad on train tracks. Every Muslim is supposed to go on the pilgrimage to Mecca, so Malcolm X does so, and he spends 2 weeks in Mecca, where he meets white people who are Muslim. He eats with them, they pray for him, they love him, and he came back to America and said, I got it wrong. The white man is not our enemy. 2 weeks of love from a white person eradicated a lifetime of racism for him. Think about that. My goodness. And we never hear that part of his story, right? We never hear that part of his story. And what really, really moves me about that story is that those white men would have known that Malcolm X had called them the devil. Right. And they chose to love him, and it changed this narrative. And I really, really, really think that that's the kind of love that we need on both sides. And I know that people aren't ready to hear that, but Martin Luther King had a 14% approval rating when he was speaking. We love him now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's got a holiday.
Yeah, dude.
We love him now. And so as a Black man, I'm willing to say the things that right now that God is telling me to say that 86% of America won't agree with.
Wow.
But 50 years from now, 86% of America will. Right. That's real change. It's a prophetic future. So it's real change. You can see a prophetic future, and church leaders are working off desired results, not prophetic future. Yeah. You know, I will say this, I think that's why we haven't been able to respond. I remember you walking around all of Vancouver before you even started. You didn't go to a conference and say, okay, what kind of church do I want? You just walked around Vancouver, and God showed you the city. Yeah. He showed you. So you planted a church based off a prophetic future that the Lord had showed you, not a desired result that you had seen another person get. All the comparison, all the so these are things that are, it's a deep reckoning, Pastor Justin. This is not just racism. Yes, it's racism. This is a deep reckoning that has been called by heaven on people who will not address this.
Right.
Really is.
Absolutely.
I've never seen anything like it.
My goodness. Man, I mean, I didn't do it as much on foot because LA is massive, but we did the same so many times. How many times did we go walk through a neighborhood or go drive to some place just to see it and experience it and try to figure out the dynamic and the spirit or the soul of a city. Yeah.
And you'll feel it, and you'll shift it, and it'll make you. And I have to believe that I have to believe in a prophetic future where this is gone.
Yeah.
Like and that singles me out as a leader, man, where people, I am angry. I'm furious.
Yeah.
And I'm hurt.
Yeah.
But God has shown me that we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the things that's been left out of Dr. King's message, is that he said the Lord showed him.
Right.
I've been to the mountaintop.
Yeah.
And now we have activists posting in the valley, and they've never been on the mountaintop with God.
Wow.
And he would show them a day where black, white, brown. And that Martin Luther King was not just fighting for injustice. He was fighting for the prophetic future that God had showed him on the mountaintop. And we have posters and emotional activism of people that have not been on the mountaintop with God.
Wow.
And to be honest, I've asked the Lord, will you show me that I'm fighting for something that you're going to do? And he said, it is. And so I think this is going to be part of my life's work, man.
Yeah.
I really do.
So how's lead pastoring going?
So
8 months in.
Okay.
10 months in. What is it?
I go to the church in October.
Yeah.
November, we kind of just got getting our getting our bearings, if you will. Christmas, the holidays, and we'll start the year with vision. 2 or 3 weeks into the year, Kobe Bryant, his daughter, and nine people died in a helicopter crash in the middle of a service. And that was that. Yeah. I was just getting through pastoring people through that. Mm-hmm. And there was this weird thought of like a virus had hit, like Seattle.
Yeah.
And we're like, man, something's going on in Seattle, man. It's not going good up there. 1 month later, our church was closed. We were just getting ready to open up some businesses and stuff.
Yeah. Now
they're boarded up over looting and riots, massive rate. So literally, all of my year as a lead pastor, my first year, is death of Kobe Bryant. And not that it's making it about me.
No, I hear what you're saying though.
Like, I don't know anything but crisis. So there's no back to normal for me. This is, as a lead pastor, this is all I know. I have still yet to preach a morning Easter service. Like, I don't know anything about crisis. Is all I know as lead pastor. So just trying to, I think one of the things I would say is that I would love to be a great steward of pain. Because I think that I thought that God was like making me the steward of like this massive, what I think is a move of God, and church attendance and people coming and growth track getting better, connect groups growing. And I just realized that he just thought I was a better steward of pain. And that's been tough.
Yeah.
Because that's just not what I had in mind. Just nothing but pain. And so my hope is that if I can show God that I'm a good steward of pain, I'll be a good steward of promise. And I think we have a doctrine of like, we'll do anything in the church to avoid pain. And this solution is going to
Mm.
take a lot of pain
A lot of pain.
because we have to rehab a nation.
Yeah.
So need rehabilitation. My dad got knee replacement surgery a couple years ago. And they told him, hey, right after you get the surgery, within 3 days, we got to be able to bend your knee at a 90-degree angle. Now, Mr. Lowe, we want to warn you, this is painful.
Yeah.
So my dad tells the story. They bend his knee and he says, Julian, I'm 65 years old. I have never been in this much pain in my life. Julian, I shouted in pain and a tear rolled down my cheek. And I asked the doctor, how far was that? And the doctor said 70 degrees. And I got so discouraged because I was in so much pain, yet I was so far away from where I needed to be. And as a nation, we're discovering that we are in so much pain, yet we're still so far away. He said, Julian, I wanted to give up. But the doctor told me that if I gave up, the scar tissue would develop around my knee, and I wouldn't be in pain, but I'd walk with a limp the rest of my life.
Wow.
So in some circles, Christians have opted for no pain, and we'll just let the church limp forward with most tracking conferences. And we're not going to deal with this because we'd rather limp than deal with the excruciating pain of racism.
Right.
My dad tells a story that the doctor says, Mr. Lowe, you're going to have to increase your threshold of pain. I got to get it to 90. So my dad took a deep breath, and he says, the doctor bent my knee. He said, this time I almost blacked out. That's how painful it was. I almost blacked out. And I said, how much was that? And he said 75 degrees. And my dad said it was in that moment I thought about, I think I'll just limp.
Right.
So then they ended up putting my dad asleep, right?
Yeah.
And then they moved it to 90 while he was asleep.
Mm.
And I think for me, I realized, man, we can't put the nation asleep.
No.
You're going to have to layer after layer, and each degree of revelation about the plight of people in color is going to cause increasing pain for everybody. And to be honest, we're not allowing ourselves to be comforted by our white brothers. It's divisive right now, and that's okay. It's kind of like black and white, and y'all need to educate yourselves, and we'll doing this. But at some point, the Holy Spirit has got to bring us together. And that's what I'm believing for. And it's going to be painful, but we need to be better stewards of pain. I don't think that when people plant churches, we love Glory Church and all these great names. I'm going to change the name of Pain Church. Pain, Knee Replacement Church. Justin, that's the new name, Knee Replacement Church, because that's what this leading a church feels like. A knee replacement.
It's called Blackout Church.
Because I was
blacking out at 75%. Oh man,
it's brutal, man. There's so much pain. I'm like, dude, are you freaking kidding me? I got my suit, my turtleneck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think anyone would tell you, year one of leading an established church, 35 years old, right? Oasis? 36 years old. Year one, taking the reins from the founding pastor. Hey, just establish culture. Honor the past, establish culture.
That's what they
and that's
exactly what they told me.
Yeah, and that's actually, in this odd way, exactly what you're doing. You're establishing an incredibly grace-filled but driven culture.
Yeah.
You're not going to coast. You're not just going to do another lap and say, hey, 36 great years, awesome years, fantastic.
Yeah.
Not going to just do that again. We're going forward.
I love that. Not going to just do another lap.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think, you are charting a new path.
Yeah.
In many ways. Some you probably wouldn't choose to.
Definitely not.
Going in, but on the other side, you wouldn't choose not to.
Yeah.
And I think of Jeremiah, where it says, "You'll seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart."
Yeah.
The word "seek" means to beat down a new path. Like you find God when you're willing to carve a new path, get out of the rut, and beat down a new path. And I think that's what we all need to do.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that in the midst of this, God has positioned you to be one of many trailblazers, people who are willing to take some first steps into uncharted territory and say, keep following this direction, and soon this pathway will become more tenable, more manageable, and we're going to find God here. I'm so proud of you, man.
Thank you.
And really grateful for your graciousness in offering perspective and mentorship to so many. Isn't it amazing how you go from being in a position where people are trying to coach you, and all of a sudden people are coming to sit at your feet saying, hey, I just need you to coach me here and help me and
It's
give
so
me
crazy.
some perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It did
you're
definitely switch. I didn't notice that, but yeah, it's true. It's crazy pendulum swing for sure.
yeah, yeah, man. So grateful for you.